Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show on this Monday, the 1st of August, 2022. Thank you for tuning in. I'm glad to have you guys here. I'm going to do a summary of what I predicted about a year ago or last year and what actually happened. So you can compare the difference, Last year I predicted that the Fed was going to cause a large fall in the markets. I actually predicted a crash, that they were going to cause a crash by raising interest rates and doing their quantitative tightening. And I said that they would probably cause the market to fall down to roughly 26,000 or maybe even below 25,000 on the Dow Jones. And that would cause a significant problem for them, and then they would change direction. And when they changed direction, then I said that, of course, the markets would start to go back up. Gold and silver would start to go back up. And we would head into a significant inflation problem, heading toward hyperinflation. It didn't pan out quite like I predicted. What actually happened is the Fed did have a marker, and I thought their marker would be about 26,000, maybe 24,000 on the Dow. Their marker was actually 30,000 on the Dow, and they had no intention on causing a crash, more significant than the crash that they caused. They did cause somewhat of a crash in the markets. They brought the market down so it just went under 30,000, briefly. Now we see the markets bouncing back, and this is because the Fed, they are tricky. They had me fooled. Like I say, they're good poker players. They're able to keep a straight face and keep what's called a poker face. And what they actually are doing is, behind the scenes, they have already pivoted. This is what I believe is going on. It's a hidden pivot. I believe that behind the scenes, somehow they're injecting money into the system, and this is why the markets are responding and they're going back up again. And so on one hand, they're keeping up this rhetoric that they're fighting inflation and that they're raising interest rates and that they're doing quantitative tightening, but on the other side of this coin, somehow they're probably injecting even more liquidity. So all this talk about them fighting inflation, the real truth of the matter is, I think they love inflation. Because basically, think about it for a minute. They're printing all this money from nothing. They print it from thin air, and they're buying things of real value with it. They're buying, like mortgage-backed securities. They were buying mortgage-backed securities. What are mortgage-backed securities? Mortgages. They're your homes. They're buying your life right up from underneath you, with money that they print off of a printer, and they can make endless quantities of it. So I was pretty close to being on the mark, considering how long ago I made those forecasts into the future. Before anybody else was even talking about pivot, I didn't really call it a pivot. I said they were going to change direction, which is basically the same thing as a Fed pivot. But I pretty much had it pegged, and I came close. I thought they would go all the way down to 26,000 on the Dow, and they stopped at 30,000. They stopped short of causing an actual crash of any real big-time significance. They know exactly what they're doing. Anyway, guys, let's get in there and let's take a look at these markets today. Let's start the charts right here and take a look at what's going on with the markets. First thing we want to take a look at is the silver price today. And it's at $20.30. It's down 4 cents on the day. Now, I expected a much larger gains in gold and silver and in cryptos and stuff after the Fed pivot than what we're seeing, and that's because they didn't let it go down as far, and it would have been a bigger bounce. The bounce is a little bit smaller, but it is moving now. And the situation that we're facing is not an awful lot unlike what happened in 2008 to gold and silver prices. First on one side you see the price crater, and then on the other side you see a significant rally, and we saw the price of silver go all the way up to almost, I guess it was around $50. Well, priced in today's currency and considering the devaluation of the dollar, we'd probably have to top $100 now to equal that. Anyway, but we're looking at 4 cents down on the day so far at 20.31 for silver. Let's take a look at gold. Gold is at 1769. It's up $3.30 on the day. Let's take a look now at cryptocurrency. And we're seeing Bitcoin is at 1,082 billion. So it's 1,082 billion for the industry. And a Bitcoin price at 23,228. So Bitcoin's doing better too as well. I think we're in the beginning stages right now. There's nowhere way around it. You know, the Fed's going to support these markets to the very end. And the games that they're playing is possibly delaying the end a little bit longer, and I think that's the whole point. Is they're supporting the dollar and they're giving the dollar strength a little bit longer into this situation by playing these mind games where they say they're going to be hard on inflation, you know, and they're going to it is supporting the dollar somewhat. It is moving things into the future a little bit. It's basically kicking the can down the road, but ultimately we know where this game has to end. You just can't print something endlessly for nothing and expect it to be worth something, like they're printing the dollar. Dow Jones Industrial average today, 32,907. It's up 62 points on the day so far. So there we are. We're 3,000 above the marker. And, you know, that makes a lot of sense now that you look at it, doesn't it? That they would set the marker at 30,000. You know, they probably had to pick a number, you know. Okay, they probably had it all planned ahead of time. How low are we going to let the market go? And the Dow would have probably been the market that they probably would have picked to set a marker on. And they probably said, okay, should we let it go down to 25,000? No, that's too low. It might crash everything if we let it go down that low. We're at 36,000 something and change right now. They probably said, let's not let it go any lower than 30,000. Okay, and they probably all agreed upon it. So what happened when it hit 30,000? Well, behind the scenes, obviously, they would do this type of support. But on the other side of that coin, they wouldn't want to let it be known what they were doing, because that would ruin everything on this big deal of fighting inflation. So, I mean, that's the way it's playing out. Let's take a look now at crude oil. Crude oil is $4.82, down at 93.80. So a little bit of a drop there in the crude oil price, you know. Let's take a look now at the MOVE index at 116.36. So we see the MOVE index is starting to settle back down, indicating stability in the markets, in the credit markets, I should say. Bonds and rates today. U.S. Treasury yields are falling. And this appears to be the most likely place where the Fed, I say appears to be the most likely place where one of the more likely places where the Fed is injecting liquidity somehow. I just haven't got a complete handle on how they're doing this. Let's call it hidden QE of some sort, or hidden stimulation of the markets. But this is the most likely place I'm watching where they could be injecting money in on the long end here of the yield curve from say the 1 year out to 30 year. Because we've seen massive falls like in the US 10-year lately, you know. I mean, look, 2 basis points today, but it's at 2.62, but it wouldn't surprise me to see it fall down. Even 2.4 would not surprise me a bit at this point. And the US 10-year and the US 30-year at 2.95, I'm very suspect of this. I mean, I don't have any proof. I don't know how they're doing it. But I do know that I think they're doing it behind the scenes somehow. Perhaps in the overnight markets, on the credit markets, and the overnight windows or whatever. Not exactly sure. They got a lot of tricks. And they've got unlimited money. And that's the big one, is unlimited money. And they're going to have to use it to keep the markets up. They're never going to let these markets drop, I don't believe, significantly let them drop, because it would mean the system would crack up. And the system supports them. Supports them, supports their families, and it supports this hierarchical type system where they lord it over the masses. They're never going to let that go. But in the end, it's going to collapse. And what's going to collapse it is, the biggest thing that they're frightened of is hyperinflation itself. Will collapse that system of theirs. So they're going to try to push that hyperinflation off as far as they can into the future. And by creating tensions, deflationary tensions, is the best way of pushing it off as far as they can, so that they can stay in power as long as possible. You know, because they don't want to lose power. And believe me, a massive worldwide hyperinflation, the dollar is their method of control of the masses. And if the dollar's worth nothing, it ceases to function as a currency. Then they're in trouble. Okay. That's one of the big things you got to prepare for, you know, for preppers out there, is the collapse of the currency. But there's other things. There's things like, I don't think it would ever happen, but we're talking about a Pelosi flight across the ocean. You've probably all heard about it. She's planning on flying to Taiwan or someplace like that, you know, and Chinese are all upset about it. I mean, probably nothing will happen from that. It'll probably just blow right over. But I mean, it could, because, I mean, if you're flying in places where, I mean, we just don't know what's going to happen with that. We don't know what's going to happen with Russia and Ukraine. I mean, the war could blow up in our faces, and all of a sudden we could be facing a situation there. In other words, there's explosive places on Earth where there's a lot of tension right now. And this is because the financial system is unstable. So we're living in very trying times. We got to watch our backs and got to watch what we got to, and so we need to prep. So you don't laugh at preppers anymore. You don't say, oh, he's a conspiracy nut or whatever. No, you're smart. Ever since COVID come and they locked us inside our homes and said, you can't leave your home. Well, how are you going to feed yourself if you can't leave your home unless you got some food inside your house? That's just blatantly a question for you there, you know? Let's take a look at the dollar index today, 105.31. And it's falling. So the dollar's starting to fall again because of their backdoor QE of some sort or another. Clandestine money printing. You know, secret money printing that they're doing somehow, some way. Bye-bye, ladies and gentlemen, and have a very nice afternoon. And we'll catch you guys in the very next show.